Hey everyone, welcome to DevFest 2020 with GDG Doha. My name is Sachin, a Google developer expert. And in this video, we'll actually learn how to build actions for the Google Assistant using the new Actions Builder. So just a brief introduction about myself. I'm a Google developer expert, especially for the Google Assistant. I also head the Google Developer Group's Doha. I'm the head of Google. I'm the CTO of a company called as Tupro Life, which is a connected healthcare company based out of Dallas, Texas. So before we actually get started with the whole session, I just wanted to make sure that for the entire session that we are doing today, the tutorial is available in my YouTube channel, which is Tech with Such. So if you go to youtube.com/Tech with Such, you'll find step-by-step tutorials on how to build for the Google Assistant using Dialogflow as well as the new Actions Builder. So the links will be posted in the comment section. So feel free to go to the channel, subscribe to it, and go through these step-by-step tutorials. And more than that, I also do these weekly episodes and live streams every week. So please join me in learning new technologies where we explore AI, machine learning, the Google Assistant, cloud, web and mobile, and more. So before we actually start building for the Google Assistant, let's understand what is Google Assistant. So for folks who are not aware of Google Assistant, make sure that think about Google Assistant is your own personal virtual assistant from Google to get things done in the most helpful manner, right? So I have a Google Home Mini over here. So this is powered by the Google Assistant. You have the Google Home Minis, which we'll be giving away as part of this whole DevFest series. Is one of we are giving away 3 Google Home Minis. So make sure that you participate, leave your feedback, and you also get participation certificates at the end of the session. Now that we understand what is Google Assistant as such, so it's your own personal virtual assistant from Google to get things done in the most helpful manner. What is it for us as developers to actually, why should we be interested in such a platform, right? So it's the virtual assistant from Google. How will it benefit us? So this slide pretty much sums it up. The Google Assistant is readily available across 1 billion plus devices. That means that anything that you build for the Google Assistant is readily accessible across these 1 billion plus devices. So we're talking about your iPhones, Android phones, smart speakers, smart displays, your Android TV, so your smart TV, everything that's integrated with the Google Assistant can run your application that you're building today or the conversational action that you might build after today's session. The other major thing to also note is we have a growing audience. So it's just not one for a specific language as such. Here you can build it for multiple languages based on different countries. So again, this is a small snippet of the supported languages that you're seeing right now, but we have a lot more coming as we speak. Now, with that being said, let's actually understand the 3 major components or parts of the whole platform. One, we have the Google Assistant, right? So we have the Google Assistant, which is a personal virtual assistant that enables conversation between you and Google to get things done. The next part is the devices. So here we're talking about devices with the Google Assistant integrated or built in. So I just showed you the Google Home Mini, which is a smart speaker with the Google Assistant built in. Your phones, your Android phones or your iPhones also have Google Assistant integrated. So, and then you're talking about your smart speakers, smart displays, or even smart watches has Google Assistant integrated. And the third part of it is the actions on Google. So what is actions on Google? Actions on Google is a developer platform where you actually create your action. So again, you might be wondering, what is this whole action? Why do I call it an action? So to just put it in simple layman terms, when you're building an application, we call it a web application or mobile application. So we call those as apps. We're used to that. In the voice technologies landscape, we call them as actions, right? So it's just like if you're building a voice application, it's basically a voice action. So the term action over here basically refers to the application that you're building for the Google Assistant. So next, now that we understood the three major components of the entire platform, let's understand what is conversational actions. Now, the ability for you to interact with Google via the Google Assistant and easily access information at a quick glance is pretty powerful. So for example, I can say, hey Google, what's the weather?
Right now in Doha, it's 86 and clear. Tonight, the forecast is for a high of 86 and a low of 77 and clear.
So here you can see how it's able to give the weather information. Again, this is based on Fahrenheit, since I'm traveling across different places. And due to the pandemic, now we're all stuck at home. And this is a best way to actually reach out to everyone that's actually joining us live today. With that being said, let's understand the basics, which is how does the entire flow work? You as a user talk to the Google Assistant, and every conversation that you're having with the Google Assistant is then passed by the Google Assistant. So the Google Assistant is responsible for passing your conversation, able to understand it. It's actually responsible to do the whole natural language processing, converting your spoken voice to text, and then it then hands it over to your action. So that's the next part. So it sends it to your action, and your action will receive the data. You might have your own backend logic where you'll have to connect with your backend database, or if not, if you have a simple response, send it back as a response to the Google Assistant. And the Google Assistant will again understand that, okay, I need to again pass this information and send it back as a audio or visual response back to the user. So that's the whole part where Google Assistant takes care of. And for people who are used to hearing my talks, especially of how to build actions for the Google Assistant, there was an old way of actually building it, which was Dialogflow. So Dialogflow is actually a pretty cool tool. It still is, especially when you're planning on building chatbots and voice assistants and integrating with different platforms. But we have actually a new way or a better way to actually build native conversational actions for the Google Assistant. So the Google team actually went back to the drawing board and actually thought about this whole scenario. Why they actually built a new tool called the Actions Builder is because as developers, you had to build your action in Dialogflow and then quickly move to the Actions Builder. So the switching between using two different platforms to kind of get your work done. So we have Dialogflow and you have Actions Console, right? So you used to create your project in Actions Console, and then you used to build your conversation or design your conversation in Dialogflow, and then you need to go back and forth. So this was actually not a pretty good way to actually build native conversational actions for the Google Assistant. So what was the next best thing? So they went back to the drawing board and built this entire tool from scratch, which is the Actions Builder and Actions SDK. Why they did it is Actions Builder is actually a pretty powerful tool. It's a web-based IDE, and that's integrated into your Actions console. So what you see over here is what Actions Builder looks like. And the reason why they built it in such a way is Google kind of envisions the whole voice technology landscape to kind of go to the next level. And they have also seen that companies are not having single developers building conversational actions. So they work as a team. So it's important that for people who are working as a team, you have conversation designers who design the flow of the conversation, and then you have developers who behind the scenes hook it up to the backend logic and do additional uh, checks or logic conditions that they need to perform. So with all of this happening, we need to have a pretty good tool to kind of understand how we can actually design the conversation, how easy it is to interpret it. At the same time, use the Actions SDK to pull down the project and give it to a developer, which is file-based system, so the developer can actually start working in it in his own IDE of choice. So then you can share it on GitHub, and the other person who's far away from or working remotely can access it quickly, make changes. So that's the whole idea behind this. So with that being said, let's also kind of see what are the basic building blocks over here and just an overview of how the UI looks. So on the top part, you have the top menu, which which basically consists of overview, develop, test, deploy, and analytics. So the reason why we have this entire thing over here is, as a developer or a designer, you have right from creating the project from here, from overview, to creating your project, to testing your action across multiple surfaces. When I say surface, it can be a smart speaker, smart display, or your phone. Then you can deploy and submit your actions for Google to approve it. And once it is approved, you can also see the analytics all in one specific console, right? Now, speaking of Actions Builder, there are some fundamental features of building blocks that you need to understand about. So the first one is scenes. If you're used to building chatbots using Dialogflow, scenes would be a completely new concept for you. So what are scenes? Scenes are building blocks for your action that processes user input and typically generates a response to the user. So I think the easiest example that I can give you is whenever you're saying, talk to my application, and the application responds back, or your voice assistant responds back with a specific response. And that response can be a greetings response. And based on that greetings response, you might be asked further questions where you would interact back, right? So that greetings is one scene. And from the greeting scene, if you need to navigate to another scene or another conversational flow, that's going to be another scene. So, and then there might be an exit version where you end the conversation. So that can be another scene. So these are basically called scenes. So this also allows us to have a powerful visualization directly in the Actions Builder to understand that, okay, I'm in this scene right now, and as the conversation is carried out, I move on to the next scene and so on. So what are custom intents? So let's say when I'm having a conversation where I give a specific question or a response to the assistant needs to understand, or your action needs to understand, that this phrase that this person has said, or the conversation this person just gave me, needs to be tied to a specific intent. What is the intent of the user? So those are basically called intents. Intent says, based on the conversation that I speak, the action would identify that, is there an intent already specified in your action? If there is, then let me go to that. And how that is identified is using training phrases. So examples of training phrases are, let's say, if a user might say to match an intent. So for every intent, so let's say if I'm today we are going to see an intent called yes or no. So whenever I say yes, I would like to, like even if you type Y. So all these are like training phrases that you feed in what the user might say. So whenever you're saying, any user says that, it would match to that intent. So training phrases are basically an important aspect of this for the machine learning model. And transitions is pretty much simple. If you're it's basically, it defines which scenes to transition once a condition is met. So I think the best way to actually learn is by building. So let's actually switch to the Actions console. So what you need to do is go to console.actions.google.com. So this is the Actions console. I'm just gonna make sure that I switch to the right account. So here I've already created a project. You can go ahead and click on new project and actually build an Actions project from scratch. So again, you need not worry about all of this because everything is available to you in the YouTube channel, where we have multiple code labs, code lab 1, 2, and we have a series of sessions that's completely related to the new Actions builder. So once you're into your project, you'll find the quick setup. So this is where you actually define what your action name should be. So you should have some way of triggering it, right? So if in my case, I would say talk to Tech with Search, or talk to Dr. Music, or talk to Uber. Those are your action names. Now you need to make sure that you follow certain guidelines and policies. And if you need any help, each section within this whole Actions builder has a help tool. When you click on it, it will actually give you what information that needs to be followed in each of these sections. You can also choose the voice that you want, and you can also choose different things. So here, this is something that I've been experimenting on. You don't need to worry about this. You can just leave it as empty. Okay, so moving on from the settings page. So here you can see we are on the settings. You click the main invocation. So the main invocation is the first thing that gets triggered. So whenever a user says talk to your invocation name or your display name or action name, once we have specified there, it will be available over here. So once you say talk to invocation name, it will automatically trigger the next steps. So here you can see, if I close this window, when you click on this, it would basically invoke your action. And what does your action do over here? You can basically say that, okay, welcome to DevFest 2020 with GDG Doha. So this is a very simple response that I'm giving back using the send prompts section. Again, you have the option of choosing YAML and JSON. Now, with this being done, if you actually go down below, you also see transition. So what needs to happen once this message is being read back to the user? You need to click transition to a different scene. So here, I have already created scenes. Okay, so what I'm doing over here is, once you click on, based on the send prompt, once it is done, I want to transition to a new scene called start. So here in this dropdown, you'll find all the scenes that you want. You also have like system scenes like end conversation that will basically end the conversation. Now over here, once you have the start scene, if you click on transition to start scene, click on here, you'll get to see what exactly happened. So it will then open up the start scene. So again, over here, you have a set of conditions, a set of features that's available within the start scene. So the first thing that you see is on enter. Let's see if there's anything filled over here. So here you can see on enter. Before we have like a send prompt again, which basically says, before you continue on your quest, would you like your fortune told? Right? So, and another thing to keep in mind is also these suggestions. So when we actually test this application right now, you'll get to see these yes and no as suggestion chips, just like how you see over here. You'll see it directly onto your smart display. So whichever the surface has a display, you'll get to see these suggestion chips. So that's one way of actually letting your user know that, okay, this is what I need to do. So maybe I'll have to say either click on yes or say yes. Now, based on this yes and no, our action needs to understand when the user says, yes, I need to do something, right? So for that, we need to create intents. So we come back here. I've already created this yes intent, and the yes intent is basically identified when you your training phrases or your conversation that the user is saying matches one of these, like tell me I would why yes. I did give why over here just in case if the user is chatting, you can still capture this as a training phrase. You can add more to actually make your machine learning model understand better. At the same time, for no, it did the same thing. We have similar things that's nope, I don't want, no, and n. So going back to the start scene, so when this prompt is sent back to the user, we are giving yes and no. And when the user says yes, you have these intent handling that you can add over here. So when yes is matched, when the intent yes is matched, what should you do next? So here I'm transitioning to a new scene called fortune. But if no is matched, you're transitioning to the end of the conversation. So let's actually go ahead and test this out. Okay, so this is the test simulator. So to trigger your action, since we haven't configured a display name or an action name, by default, this would be called Talk to My Test app. And if you have an Android or iOS device, or if you have any smart speaker with the Google Assistant built in, and if you're building using the same Google account, make sure that you can actually try this out directly onto your phone as well. So the way how you trigger it is by saying, talk to my test app. So which I'm going to do right now. So here you can see that we have welcome to DevFest 2020 with GDG Doha. Before you continue on your quest, would you like your fortune told? So if I say yes, it would go on to the next scene. If I say no, it will basically end the conversation. So here you can see, I understand stranger, best of luck on your quest, farewell. So the one that you see on the right hand side, these are called event logs. So you can get to see the exact conversational flow, what has happened. So you go to the user input, start the conversation, on enter, you went to the start scene, and the start scene has read out the prompt. So here you can see it's waiting for the user input. And when I clicked on no, it's basically ending the conversation. Okay. So that's a quick overview of the Actions Builder. Some of the other things that I would like to show as part of the Actions Builder is also the fact that under the Develop tab, you can actually link your webhook. So webhook is, let's say you have your own backend logic that you need to take care of. So you can add that backend logic either in the form of cloud functions, or you can change the fulfillment and add your own webhook where you're connecting to your backend, fetching this information, and then providing the response accordingly. And again, there's a lot more to actually explore. We have types, we have conditions, and a whole lot of that. So all of those are available to you in the YouTube channel, Tech with Such. You can actually go through the entire tutorial series step by step to actually cover a lot of these things. With that being said, if you want to build your own from scratch, you can check out all these tutorials. Here's a tutorial where Jessica from Google and myself, we joined together to have a conversation, and we started discussing about what are the different aspects of the Actions Builder, why is it important, and how she did a complete walkthrough of the Actions Builder from start to finish. So do check this video out. And if you want to learn more, again, as I said, connect with me, and we'll have weekly sessions and videos coming out on different topics from Google Assistant, AR, VR, machine learning, cloud, mobile web, and more. I would also like you guys to connect with me on my social media platforms. And if you enjoy reading tech articles, do check out my tech articles or blogs in Medium as well. So here's the link for that. And thank you all for joining today's session. Thank you all for joining today's session. So one thing to keep in mind is make sure that you complete the feedback form, okay, and answer the questions mentioned in the feedback form. If you're a resident of Qatar, you have a high chance of winning a Google Home Mini. And with that, you can actually build whatever you've learned today and directly try it out in using your Google Home Mini. So we are super excited to have you all today, and we'll be quickly jumping to the last session for today's DevFest, which is going to be the next talk on augmented reality. I hope you guys enjoy that. So see you guys in the next one.